another episode of Talking with Friends. I am Josh Chernoff, and these are my friends. First, we will begin with my brother, Fred Chernoff. Fred, how are you today?
Doing fine, sir.
Love the shirt. Talk about that for just a second here.
Yes.
Finally, a Lee Harrison Styles shirt.
At long last, there is a shirt.
Courtesy of Matt Mangle. Matt Mangle made that shirt for you after last time. It is a fist punching through lemons.
There it is.
It's really good. And if you hear that crying in the background, that's our next friend here. Calvin Tan, welcome to the show.
Good to see everyone again.
Good to see you. Good to hear you, I'm sure. Our final friend here, TWF Tag Team title displayed behind him and wearing a shirt that he created himself that reads, for those of you who are listening to the audio version, I did me. Well, someone had to. Please welcome Matt Mangle.
I did me.
Mangle, how are you?
Pleasure to be here, and full bladder and all. Should be good.
Excellent. You know, you could have urinated before we started.
No, I
You could urinate now.
Don't leave it in the hallway.
Oh, he's about to leave it in his office right there. Well, today, we want to thank everybody who has joined us over at youtube.com/SoSaysChernoff. You get to see some fun videos from all the times that we're talking about, but also joining us on the podcast platform of So Says Chernoff. Appreciate having you here, and I hope you'll check everything else out. I hope that some of you are watching this, some of my new followers, thanks to the video that I did with Matt Cardona that's over 150,000 views at this point. That video, by the way, anyone who is here now who has watched that video, which is definitely more people than are watching this video right now, at one point, Matt Cardona says in his impassioned speech, he says, "Don't give me the thumbs up, camera mark." Well, that camera mark is our very own Calvin Tan, who, in one of the best reactions on Twitter, I believe it's Twitter, maybe it was Instagram, I don't know, commented on Cardona's post of the video with an emoji of a camera and an emoji of a thumbs up, which I thought was fantastic. Yes, Calvin is usually there. Calvin was doing his job, which is when we've reached our like social media time, we're like starting to reach our social media limit. When we feel like you've wrapped things up well, he gives you the thumbs up, which is kind of the go home, you know, because normally when we're posting on social media, we are held to a specific number of seconds that we can do the video. We don't want to cut it off before we send it. So that is Calvin's job to give that thumbs up. But Matt Cardona, the king of the death matches, Matt Cardona, always ready, was having none of it.
Wasn't quite done yet.
No, he wasn't done yet. Cutting his classic promo where he announced himself as the face of GCW and a face with teeth. Anyway,
shout out to GCW for
yes.
They were very nice to us, very accommodating to all of us.
They really were. We appreciate it very much. It was an insane atmosphere there. The crowd was rabid. They were going crazy. And I turned to Calvin and I said to him, I feel like this crowd would really appreciate a Rocky Styles versus Mangle match. We were, listen, our shows towards the end, we were lucky to have any light bulbs, let alone light bulbs to break over each other. I think, once we get to our 2007 era, I think we had one light bulb hanging above the ring. But we're not talking about 2007 today, guys. We are talking about 2003. Where we left off, we had talked about probably the highest of highs for the 2002 to 2003 era TWF. And to recap a little bit, Mangle was lying in the ring. Fred was raising the hands of the Solution, Scott Fowler, who was your new champion, and Big Papa had made his return as a heel. So we're riding high after that, Fred. And what do you
So-
remember as like kind of the follow up to that?
A few things. I remember that this is going to be when we finally decided to try television, which I don't remember exactly who was the biggest proponent of it. I know Morad wanted it. Josh, you really wanted it. Yeah.
It was me all along.
Yeah. And I think we had a lot of ideas. Josh had had a notebook full of stories of where we were going with all of our angles. And I think we were done at that point. We had finished up our contract with Colonial for the time being. And we wanted to do something. We were scheduling a TV taping. The first thing, and I guess we'll jump back into that. But once we committed to do television, we were going to use some highlight videos to hype our guys in the angles and get people familiar with the product. And then leading into the first TV taping, and we wanted a certain atmosphere for that taping. And Morad's father worked at a hotel that had a ballroom. And we talked about this when we came back. We obviously had the Expo Center in the original version of the TWF. We came back running in a ballroom, and we loved that. It worked out really well for us to be in the gym. It worked out well to be in all these environments, but we loved that kind of classier room that really had a cool atmosphere. So we decided that that's where the TV taping was going to be. And I think I've just dumped a whole bunch on you right there. So
yeah, something Mangle, of course, is very used to having happen to him. Mangle, do you remember? I mean, I guess I'll kind of fill everybody in here. So I really wanted us to be on TV. I really.
It's Superstar broke Morad's billfold.
Well, so here's the thing. Morad, we didn't know what kind of money he had. We knew he had his own store. And, to us, you have to remember, so I was 19 years old at the time. A guy who's 5 years older than me in his mid-20s.
I believe he was. I think he was 24. Yeah.
In his mid-20s, owns his own store. So to me, I looked at him like, well, he must have money. On top of that, he continuously alluded to his dad's hotel. He talked about his dad's hotel. Oh, it's his dad's hotel. And not just alluded, like flat out said, it's my dad's hotel. Whatever you want, my dad has a hotel. You can take care of it. His dad, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful in any way, but his dad was the custodian at the hotel. He was maybe the head custodian, I think. So he had connections, but there's a big difference between the head custodian of a hotel and the man who owns his own hotel when it comes to what the bottom line looks like in their ledger. So we thought also Morad had a tendency to kind of throw out like, I want to bring this guy in. Well, he costs X number of dollars. I don't care. I want to bring him in. So now we start thinking, all right, well, he wants to bring in Perry Saturn. He wants to bring in Crowbar. They're asking a decent amount of money. That's more money than we have. All right, I guess we got a guy who's got a little bit of money here. I want to bring in this ring crew. I want to bring in, these lighting things of that, which is something that Mangle reminded me after the last episode. That the lighting actually came from our connections. I had an old friend from high school named Josh Kulik, and he had a friend who did lighting, and I did not remember this until Mangle brought it up, that friend whose name escapes me was the guy who handled all of the lighting at, I had in the last episode said that it came with the new ring and entranceway, but the lighting apparently came from this other guy.
Can I interject here? There's something else that we forgot about the time period, the Morad era leading up to this upcoming show that we're about to talk about. And I believe his name was Gabriel.
Oh boy.
We have to talk about him. It's not going to seem like he's that important, but it plays into something later on.
Yes.
I don't remember. He was Morad's friend, right? Or knew him from his store or something like that?
He's a friend, yeah. I just knew him as a friend.
And he he was a good artist, and he became a fan of what we were doing, and he created custom
Turnbuckle pads.
like the turnbuckle pads. Yeah. He designed TWF turnbuckle pads that we could put on our rented ring.
Unfortunately, we made a mistake because he was only able to finish 4 of them in time for the show. And they looked great. They really looked great. But when they put them on the top. And looking at it now, you have a bunch of black turnbuckle pads and only 4 of them have it. You put them in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, blank on top, blank on the bottom, and the TWF one in the middle. But I mean, that placement of the turnbuckle pads is the 100% reason as to why our company failed. But but Gabriel was there, always there to help out. So at this point in time, we had wrapped up. We had just done New Year's Revolution. Great audience there, some great matches, told some great stories that led into the tournament. So we were trying to figure out how to get onto TV because a void had been filled in the last couple of years with ECW leaving Channel 48. And we were hearing all this talk of Ring of Honor was going to be getting their show, and they did. Ring of Honor did get their show right around the same time on TV. And we're looking at it, and Ring of Honor, the wrestling, we couldn't compare to Ring of Honor's in-ring. But considering Ring of Honor was run by a video company, if you look back at the early stuff and you put it against our early stuff from a graphic standpoint, from a video production standpoint, in my humble opinion, they didn't hold a candle to us. In a perfect world, we would have gone into work with them and they would have had an incredible show, and we would have had incredible video packages and things like that. But back then we were doing a lot more creatively than they were doing.
Well, remember part of it at that time, we had a big chip on our shoulders too. I think that as we were starting to get to reach a certain level, and we're proud of what we were doing, and it's very easy to look at Ring of Honor, what it is now, what it's been for all these years. But Ring of Honor was nothing other than in the earliest stages, other than this thing that's kind of weird because they shake hands and
right.
And it's got talent from Japan and other places, and it's run by the video guy. And that was kind of it. And so that was happening. I think CZW was starting to form around that time, and we were very threatened by everybody. We felt that was our competition because there's a void in Philadelphia wrestling, and we want to be the standout so that WWE will take notice and want us to be a farm league. And so we considered all these other companies to be our competition. Mo-Rad also considered TNA to be our competition. And around that time, when we were discussing the TV stuff, is when he came to our office. We had that big meeting, and he told us that he heard TNA was about to go out of business.
Which was something that hasn't happened yet, but there had been talks for a while, and now if you listen to the My World podcast,
if you want to synchronize the podcast, our story's right around that time of when Jeff Jarrett was forming TNA.
Yes, and you can tell there are a few differences. So anyway, we wanted to do TV badly, and one of the
We wanted to do TV badly.
We wanted to do TV badly, and we succeeded. And we succeeded. So I ended up calling. I had called a couple like a year earlier. I'd called a couple of other TV networks, and nothing happened. I called Channel 48, and I finally was able to talk to somebody. The way it was pitched was kind of like, well, you can pay to be on. I want to say it was $400 an episode. And I think we had to commit to 2 weeks worth. So $800. So $1,600 a month. I'm quite the mathematician. But we had to pay to be on this. But we looked at it and we said, okay, I mean, that's kind of standard how things were back then. That's what everyone was doing. And we got a pretty decent time slot, which I don't remember exactly what it was. But it was somewhere probably around like 11 o'clock or some, or 10 o'clock or something like that. But we decided that we wanted to present this in a different way than Ring of Honor. And I think we were really looking at Ring of Honor as like our we're going to be different than them
Mhm.
because we knew we couldn't compete with them. So we decided what we were going to do is really emphasize our characters. And looking back on it now, it was both really cool and also kind of like, man, what were you thinking? So we decided to go with the primetime wrestling style by having our announcer, Sassy Mike Malassi, and the gentleman caller, Phil May, pretty much do wraparounds and intros. And they sat in the conference room, the very conference room that Calvin Tan rolled the Snapple bottle across the table, the very conference room where Biz Cheney gave a rotating middle finger to all of his friends. That was the room. So to help you picture those stories from earlier episodes, this was the conference room. This was the table.
Back when they made Snapple with glass bottles.
You know, I just saw this. I was in a Wawa in New Jersey and saw Snapple bottles. I don't know why I haven't come across them before, and I was dumbfounded that they're not in the standard glass bottle. And I understand why, but A, I think the last thing this world needs is more plastic, and B, it just lost a little something of the pure Snapple experience.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's drinking something out of plastic versus out of glass. To me, there is a difference.
Have we discussed Phil May before?
No, and I think it's
I don't
due
know
time.
when we're ever going to talk about him again. So, and I love the gentleman caller name that I came up with. If I could give myself
it's
credit for that.
fantastic.
Phil was a family friend of Mike Green's family and had some sort of history with the WWF. Did he not?
He did, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was he ring announced at like, I don't know if it was like the Spectrum or whatever. He ring announced for like old WWF
Old school.
shows.
He knew Alpha from way back when.
Yes, and he worked for WXW as an announcer. Phil May was one of the people who in when was it? It was Last Man Standing, the first Last Man Standing, when Alpha told Tommy Suede not to come and Andy Only not to come to our show. Phil May basically told Alpha, "No, I'm going to go to TWF instead." And it was like, "Well, you can't work for WXW then." And he's like, "Well, that's okay." And that was it. And he chose us. And I love Phil May, and I hope he is as well, because it's been quite a long time since we've seen him. And
Really has, yeah.
I hope Phil May is enjoying his life. And he's a very good man. But Phil May was our commentator. He had somewhat of a Wilford Brimley like delivery in his manner of speaking, and we were very lucky to have him, because I felt in a promotion, looking back on a promotion with these young kids, having Phil May, who was a gentleman in his, at the time, probably 50s.
I guess, yeah.
He 40s or 50s at least. He brought some legitimacy to us. And I always enjoyed his interactions with Mike. It was always a lot of fun. Because, they had genuine love for each other as they were, he was Uncle Phil to him.
Sorry.
And, but we had them doing the wraparounds, and I think it turned out pretty well. Fred sat in on one at one time, and I remember we had it was in we did this in that office there, which was in our grandfather's real estate office, and there was a big picture frame with a painting of an old property that he had once developed, and I used that almost as like a green screen, in the way that they did with the old primetime wrestling, where they would turn and look at the screen behind them, and then it would, superimpose. And I was pretty impressed with my ability to do it. When Fred came out, I remember it played like his entrance video on it when he joined the show, and it was really cool. And our mindset was, as Fred alluded to earlier, before we got to our TV tapings, what we were going to do was we were going to use clips from, we were going to use video packages, and we were going to use clips from previous events, beginning with New Year's Revolution. And our thought process was, while we're trying to provide something better than what we thought the broadcast of Ring of Honor was, we knew we couldn't compete with the in-ring ability. We knew that that the Mangle Rocky Styles ladder match was going to be laughed out of the, people would turn the TV right off. So we took the approach instead that we began with Kevin Matthews versus John Walters, which we felt to be a really good wrestling match. And within that, we showed video packages of some of our top talent. And this is where, all right, so every mark who enters the wrestling business, they decide to copy things. I did it.
Oh, God. I know where this is going.
I came to the ring doing the Rob Van Dam thumbs, even though Rocky Styles wasn't even
and the Rob Van Dam moves and the Rob Van Dam singlet. I mean, there was a lot of Rob Van Dam.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get high before I did it. Otherwise, I think I would have enjoyed that night even more. But we had Brody for that. I loved what WWE was doing at the time with the Desire videos, if any of you remember that. I would show you a clip right now, but I can't because we don't own the rights to that. But that didn't stop us back in 2002. So I created Desire videos, which I thought were very well put together. Unfortunately, when trying to create my own intro and outro to give credit to Creed and U2, because we, of course, used the same music that they used in WWE, I basically just copied, like literally downloaded the video of WWE's stuff and used that. And I was 19 years old. I was like, I don't know, we'll do our own Desire videos. Oh, they can't get mad at us. We're giving credit to them. Thankfully, we were not big enough for anyone to send us a cease and desist. But that's what we aired, and a lot of fans were like, what the hell? You can't do this.
Well,
they were long,
you have
too.
to remember that Channel 48 at night had ECW, and all the wrestlers used unlicensed songs.
Very
from
true.
bands.
It was following some of the ECW formula of the highlight packages and stealing music and
But I mean, I straight up stole the
intro,
like the intro video that was created by WWE.
It
wasn't long. You said they were long. It wasn't long.
No, not long. Not long
edited-
compared to the history of the TWF Championship.
No. It was edited down. I remember editing the Creed song, whatever it was. Whatever it was. I remember editing it down. I cut an entire verse out. So it was not very long. It was maybe long in the sense that our video was pretty repetitive. Like, what were we going to do? We just had pictures, just videos of, because we had individuals. We began with the history of the TWF video, not the history of the TWF championship, but the history of the TWF video, which has had many, many incarnations. And maybe we'll even, at the end of this episode, maybe we'll even put that would be kind of fun. Maybe at the end of this episode on our YouTube page, youtube.com/SoSaysShernoff, you can watch at the end of this, immediately following Talking with Friends, you can watch that, the most recent edited version of that, which kind of shows all parts of the TWF.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I was going to say with the TV thing. So I think that going back to you saying we chose to have the primetime wrestling approach, and we did these sort of ECW-esque highlight packages and all that. I don't think that the idea was bad as far as the approach to television, starting with introducing people to the characters and the storylines, and going from there to the TV tapings. I think the problem, if you think about the $400 an episode, the problem was our approach for television of what we were using it for, which didn't really exist. We never thought through the strategy, because if you think about it, ECW and I believe Ring of Honor to a similar extent were really more than anything trying to sell videos.
Right.
That was the biggest thing. Yes, they wanted people to come to their live product, the live events, but they were pushing their videos and their DVDs later on and all that kind of thing through the television show.
Right.
We didn't really have that kind of thing. We were mostly hoping that we would suddenly have this huge following that it would show up at the live events. And when you run the math of like just how much we were putting out per month and the overhead that was dumping on us for trying to swing these live events that were already having trouble breaking even. I mean, there really was very little strategy there to the TV.
No, that's true. And I mean, because you're talking about even at $10 a ticket, we would have had to have if we were running once a month, we would have to sell 160 tickets, which I understand that's not a lot, but that was by no means a guarantee.
And that's to cover that's to cover TV that served as the commercial to get those people there, let alone all the other expenses that have to be covered.
Which is a break even right off the bat. We try to get sponsors. I remember Mangle and I going around trying to get like local sponsors, because you also have to remember the internet. It wasn't the same way it was now. It wasn't like nowadays. You know, I have sponsors, and we're hoping to get a sponsor for this show, maybe even as soon as next month. Looking to have a sponsor on here, and it's, you know, we can do that. We can also push our t-shirts over prowrestlingtees.com/talkingwithfriends. A bunch of new t-shirts up there, but you know, we didn't have the ability to get that sponsorship money even for the live events. We tried, but it wasn't really working. But now there was a whole lot of I don't give a damn, because it was Morod's money. So Morod wanted to spend $1,600, and our job was to put on a really good show. Our job was to edit a TV show, and our job was for me to drive that down to Channel 48 in Manayunk, and that was it. Our job wasn't to sell stuff. And remember also, we had the sponsor of Morod's Toys, where Morod kind of looked and took that approach of it will sponsor his toy store. So, but looking at what we did with TV, I remember, you know, we started things off with some good wrestling on there, and as time went on, once we kind of made our way through the television shows, first of all, I should say we called it TWF Adrenaline, which I thought was a really cool name. I want to say Mangle came up with it, but I don't know if I'm giving him credit for something he doesn't deserve.
So.
Yeah, by the way, Matt Mangle's back. For those of you who are listening to this, he crept in just a moment ago. How are the kids?
Sorry, peek behind the curtain. Got 2 kids under 2, and the younger one was sick at the hospital. She's good now, but my wife and her were out for 5 days. So now her sister, who's a year and a half, basically doesn't want to not be around them. So it's fun. We're all good. Everyone's healthy. It's fine.
And that is the most important thing, that everyone is healthy. And we thank
Sleeper Hold, Rings of Saturn, into Spinal Tap, and almost just about put her out. So
that is it. Well, we're glad that everybody is home safe and sound and doing well and on the mend.
Thank you for carrying this portion of the show, much like I carried you in the ring, Josh.
I beg your pardon, sir. Now, TWF Adrenaline. That was the show. We had Mangle. Do you remember what music we used for the theme song?
This was also we decided. I was at my old house back on Meadowbrook, and MTV, when they actually played music videos, we found Seven Dust Praise.
Yep.
Right. So isn't this the era where we brought that in, right?
Yes. Seven Dust Praise. We had a really cool intro that I would like swap out different people in the beginning as kind of like showing our top guys and cool effects.
And again,
on
this
it.
is 2003, not easy to do, and I think we have pretty good video production.
Well, thank you.
Ahead of our time. Yeah.
Yes. And we're going to talk about that video production in a minute.
Yeah.
So anyway, I feel like I've kind of, get where we're going here. Basically, we put on these shows, we edited these together, got them down to Channel 48 TWF Adrenaline, and we started introducing people to our product. And I think people were enjoying it. I think people enjoyed it either in a way as fans, or I think some people, for what we lacked in quality, I think there was a charm to that even. I think people probably started enjoying. I dare I say there may have been some people going, you need to go Channel 48 and check out this. It's terrible. You know, the wrestling is is atrocious. And you know what? Maybe that's what they got, but they still watched. And Channel 48 was very happy with us. I mean, specifically because we were paying them to put something other than old kung fu movies on. Yeah, so we went ahead and we had TWF Adrenaline TV. And so after we finished with New Year's Revolution shows, we jumped into Last Man Standing. Now, at Last Man Standing, we had done a number of backstage vignettes, which we had not really done since the previous Last Man Standing in 2002. But we did these backstage vignettes, and we utilized those on TV as well. And that was when I remember sitting at Mike Green's house. I don't remember who was with me. I would have to assume Mike Green. But I don't know if you guys, Calvin or Fred or Matt, if you guys were with me. But I remember that was when we decided, let's put it on. This is pretty damn cool. We can watch this. And it was completely washed out, the video. Now, I should say, to take a jump back, the first show that aired on Channel 48 of TWF Adrenaline took place it aired on May 12th, Monday night, May 12th, 2003. Our thought was, okay, it's Monday, but not that big of a deal. I believe, if I'm correct, it was on at like 11 o'clock because we thought, perfect, finish watching Raw and go right into watching this. Well, wouldn't you know it, in our typical luck, the only place that would not work would be the place that was hosting Monday Night Raw, because the fans would not be able to get back in time. And again, people did not have DVRs. I mean, maybe Fred had one, like really early DVR, which was not at all. It was a box you had to buy, and it had a
Replay TV.
Replay TV. Some people had TiVo, but it really was not common. We were looking at it as, okay, that's fine. We're going to really put this over in Philly. We're going to really get our Philly audience. That's who's going to do it. Well, Monday Night Raw came to you live from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on May 12th, 2003. And fun fact, I went to the show and decided to watch our show on recording afterwards. So I wasn't the only one. So I think the only market where we had been promoting this, and the only market where anyone had ever even remotely heard of the name TWF, was the market where everybody was at Raw. But we did go around with some flyers at Raw, whoever went with me, and handed out some flyers. I remember walking around in the hallway handing people little flyers to watch TWF Adrenaline. I feel like Mangle was with me.
It might have been, man. That's a long time ago.
It was a long time. I don't remember. So yes, that didn't go well. So anyway, then about a month or two later, they completely washed out our show. It was something with, do you guys remember what it was?
I think they just messed up the saturation or something.
Saturation or something, yeah.
It looked like we were having the show in the middle of the sun.
Yes, it was very, very bright.
How bright it was.
Maybe they turned up the brightness. Something went wrong. Someone bumped the dial and it was out of control.
It was as if we were in a music video by Aha and fell into the comic book, and it stayed black and white.
Yes.
But it was all white.
Yes. And Morad
it was as if we had the show in the middle of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man's stomach.
Oh.
Okay.
Didn't think you were going with stomach.
Neither.
But
I don't know how that's how your marshmallows, Josh.
But Murad Habishian, he had other ideas of what must have happened.
Yes. Oh my God.
He
yeah.
believed that this was one of many attacks on him
Conspiracy.
from one Rob Dimension. His van had been broken into, and he believed it was Rob Dimension. And at this point in time, I'm gonna timestamp for myself because we like to keep our language. Like to keep our language.
I was just thinking we talked about Morad, but I don't think we've ever
But we
talked
didn't
about the
share-
way Morad talked.
We didn't share this. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm giving myself a little extra work to have to beep this stuff out. But Morad, this is an example of him explaining to you, not even something negative like Rob Dimension, but that TNA was going to go out of business, let's say. You're f***ing TNA and shit. They're f***ing going, they're going to f***ing go, they're going out of business and shit. The f***ing, they're not going to be in business anymore. I hear that they're f***ing closing down and shit. So everything was something and shit. To the point, and I'm jumping ahead in the story, but at a point, and we'll get to this with Justin Cage, dropping foul language during a match at our June show, and we will get back to that. But Morad Habishian ran around in the back, pissed off because they were told not to use foul language because there was a priest there or something. Yep. And he's running around going, he's yelling fucking shit and shit. So
It's got to be a T-shirt, Josh. Somehow,
I don't know.
Slitter,
get creative.
it's fucking shit and shit. There you go.
That's a public service announcement from Morad Habishian.
Oh, God. That's a tough one. It would also be a good episode title, but also really tough to do.
Yeah, that would be a great episode title. Yeah, just a bunch of that might be it.
So Morad believed that Rob Dimension was stalking him and undercutting his business at every opportunity, and became very conspiracy minded. And when things went wrong with the television show, he believed that Rob Dimension was sabotaging that as well, and let loose a tirade of curses.
Yeah,
and we had to talk him down from it, which was he was really fired up. I don't know what he thought he was going to do, but it was
he was hot.
He was pissed.
He was beyond half hot at this point.
Oh yeah.
But anyway,
he thought his livelihood was in danger based on nothing, based on actual hypothetical ponderings.
So let's talk a little bit about who Rob Dimension was. Rob Dimension was, we've mentioned him before, he was the former Dimension Collectibles, was the store that was in the spot in Ambler, Pennsylvania before Morad's Toys. He was also the one who I went to and had the conversation with, who got me into PWF, working against lukewarm John Brody for Steve Corino's promotion.
Right. Somehow that I don't really understand, but Corino and Rob Dimension became very close friends and went into business together to run a promotion.
Rob Dimension was obsessed with him.
Yes.
Obsessed with him. Just putting that out there.
Though I would say, when did he run the thing? When did they do TV or internet TV or whatever that was? It was a few years later.
Yeah,
because he did a really good job, and he's the one who first brought some life out of Mark Mess that we
Mr. Mark
later
Mess
capitalized on.
Yes.
Yep.
I'll
give him that credit. They did some they got messed, and they did a segment where
it's around 2004, 5 maybe. 2005.
And this is we're jumping all over the place here, but
no one's
talked about
Mess
Mess
anyway, so it doesn't matter.
We talked about Mark Mess and how serious he had been when we worked with him in 2002, and we loved the guy, but he took everything very, very seriously and didn't want to waver from his serious perception of himself. And somehow Dimension got him to loosen up a bit a couple years later, and they were running hilarious segments on their show on the internet where he's Mess manager, who he's calling Mr. Mark Mess, and is training him, and they're in a park, and Mess is collapsing and hyperventilating on a bench. It was great.
It was great.
So I got to say, Rob. Anything else about Rob Dimension you want to say? But he delivered a good character, and he brought a lot out of Mark Mest.
So Calvin Tan, do you remember watching the TWF on Channel 48?
I don't, because I don't think I was around for this part. 2003, I was in New York.
Yes. Calvin Tan was in New York, had a internship at what record label?
Universal Records.
Universal Records. Tell us, Calvin, since you haven't had as much to contribute, tell us some fun stories from your internship at Universal Records. I remember one with having to get shoes.
Yes, I was just going to say the shoes.
Yeah, so at the time, Nelly was the big artist that was signed to Universal Record, and his, I think, second album came out. So we were promoting that. I was interning in the promotions department. So at the time, I think the hit single off of that was Hot in Here, if you remember that song.
Of course.
And then
that's what made a lot of people take off all their clothes.
Yes. And then the second single
Can I
second single,
if I may interrupt you one what
I'm sorry,
were you,
Airwolf is out here.
What were you interning? What department?
Promotions.
Okay. And in
So-
no way were you able to help the TWF?
You couldn't sell one ticket?
You couldn't come back at least with a phone call of just, hey guys, I was thinking maybe I learned a little something in my promotions internship that might help you guys out. Well, you probably would have learned, don't do it.
You know. Well, the first thing I would have told you was don't use unlicensed music on TV. But, you know,
So-
I guess ECW set the standard there.
So Nellyville, the second studio album by American
Yes.
rapper Nelly, was released June 25th, 2002, which featured such songs as Hot in Her, spelled Herre, Air Force Ones,
That was right.
yep, and Work It,
That would be
featuring
serious.
Justin Timberlake, which, fun fact, post TWF, that was the entrance music used by myself and Big Lou when we went by the tag team name The Showstoppers. We'll get to that one day. But so there was that.
so
The next album
Air
did not come
Force-
out until 2004. So chances are at this point, a year later, yes, he was probably really pushing some of that.
Well,
stuff.
they're rolling out the singles one by one, I'm sure. So it was the Air
So
Force Ones.
Hot in Here was all that summer when it got released, you know, into Christmas. And then I started in January at Universal Records. So by that time, we started pushing Air Force One.
Air Force Ones, which was released November 7th, 2002. So yes, that lines up. And then Work It was released February 25th, 2003, followed by Pimp Juice, April 1st, 2003. So yes, just you know, why not? Little Nelly, Nelly history.
So if you don't know what Air Force One, we're not talking about the president's plane. We're talking about the Nike shoes, Air Force Ones. And Nelly put out that single and it blew up. And promotions, what we did was we caught up. We told radio stations that, hey, play this single, Air Force Ones, and we'll send you a pair of Nike Air Force Ones in whatever color you want, and Nelly will sign it, and you guys can run a contest. And they would tell us the shoe size of whoever won, and we would send them those shoes signed by Nike. So I was tasked to go to Nike Town, and for whatever reason, I guess we didn't have an inside connection to Nike Corporation. So I had to go to Nike Town every day with a list of shoes in specific colors and sizes and buy these shoes for Nelly to sign. And Nike Town would only let us buy 10 pairs a day. So they pretty much gave me the corporate credit card and go, hey, get these shoes. So I went all over New York City looking for these specific, like, do you have the red on white, in size 9.5, so did that for about like a week, 2 weeks, and then we lined up all the shoes on the floor, and we had Nelly come in and sign all of them. And that is how we got radio stations to play that single, to push it.
Now, we tried to get people to raffle off Mangle signed Timberlands, and it didn't.
No
work.
luck.
But no. So Calvin was busy doing that. He was in New York. I guess maybe they didn't get Channel 48 over there in New York.
Channel 40 is local Philadelphia.
Yeah, Philly.
And Calvin was basically only coming in to help us run some shows. So that brings us to the fact that the TV just wasn't working out. But we said, you know what, we're soldiering through, and it's time to do a TV taping. But right around this time, we have now scheduled a TV taping, which is going to be at Morad's dad's King of Prussia Hotel. Do you remember what hotel it was? I don't even think it's the same thing.
It's a Crown Plaza now. I think it was a. Was it a Radisson?
No, I don't think it was the Radisson.
No.
But but at this point in the story, we'll talk about. I guess maybe from your point of view, guys. I mean, I was editing this stuff, and I don't even remember what kind of computer I had.
You were editing constantly. We had the oh God, I'm trying to remember. It was the computer that we had bought from Best Buy, and we put that really expensive video card in.
Right.
And you had a DVD burner that was about as fast as we could get at the time, but still very slow.
Horrible. And that's the thing too. I had to hand deliver a DVD of the episode to down to Channel 48, and
so you had these deadlines. You had weekly deadlines, and I remember that it was really you were. Where are we going here?
Let's go to the bathroom.
Josh taking a break, trying to find an old DVD.
Yeah, I think he's trying to dig up a DVD.
What do you got there?
Courtesy of Matt Mangle.
Oh man, is that an episode? Yeah, it's washed out the way the broadcast was.
This is the premiere episode, TWF Adrenaline TV 1, air date 5/12/03. And here is TWF Adrenaline TV 5/19/03. Mangle gave these to me so that I could upload them.
Digitize that stuff, yeah.
So I can digitize it. Only problem is my computer doesn't have a CD or DVD drive. And the one that I do have that always connected to the other computer I had, apparently it does not get powered enough through the import. So I'm going to have to get one so that I can
yeah, that is something. But
what
I remember
gave those, so we'll definitely have to upload those.
Oh, there you go. There it is.
So wait,
I kept this all those years.
Oh my God.
An external DVD burner, double layer burner.
Wow. I don't know if we had dual layer with.
I don't know. I don't think we. So
what I do know is that the problem at the time.
These held, just an idea for those who aren't familiar. These held a whopping, and brace yourselves, 4.7 gigabytes.
Right. That single layer. So there were several things,
which was a problem.
Yeah. Yes. So you were editing on the best equipment that we could afford, but it was still slow. Everything, obviously the original videos back in those days were not digital. It's not like today where you can take out a memory card or something and just have it all be on your computer. Everything had to be run through. You had to play each camera into the system and digitize it. So there were several steps involved. The editing was very slow. And then when it was all said and done, you had to go through the DVD authoring software and run a slow-ass DVD burner that would take, on average, about 2 hours. And sometimes, as it would get near the end, would just give it up and blow the disc. And you basically were left with the coaster and have to start all over again.
Yep.
And the storage capacity issue, which was, it's hard to believe, like thinking back to it, because you're not talking about 4K video. You're not talking about HD video. You're talking about so-called DVD quality video, which our cameras weren't even really good enough to do proper 480 progressive scan video. Yet, we couldn't even get the fullest quality, the best quality that our cameras are capable of Josh had to compress the video down to a lower quality in order to get it to fit the full episode on those DVDs. So everything, and the compression took time. I think it would process before it would even start burning. So everything was hours. And Josh was at the office until all hours of the night, every time with these weekly deadlines, trying to get these episodes done. And I think that was, when we look ahead to what was coming, that was the biggest thing, was that you were, Melrod was the money guy at this point, but you were still, for all intents and purposes, the TWF. I wasn't doing as much production stuff. It really was you behind the scenes, and you were burning out and becoming irritable. And I'm not just talking about your bowels. It was
go get that Chernoff plumbing shirt, available now at I don't remember what it says. We'll clog that. I think is what it says on the shirt. Chernoff plumbing, available now at ProWrestlingTees.com/talkingwithfriends.
But I think it just got to a point where you were really, really burning out. And so and I think you were getting frustrated because you had this notebook full of ideas, and your dreams are coming true, that we're all on TV and doing all this stuff, but the infrastructure wasn't there. You had no team, you had no anything. And not that you had no team and that like we weren't willing to help, but there was nothing we could do. We didn't have a room full of computers, you know. Like,
you're just gonna sit there with me while I wait for the DVD. You know,
we did,
which you did. I was gonna say what you did at times.
Moral support.
Yeah, but I mean, I would be there until 2, sometimes 3 in the morning. Yeah. And I remember one time where I remember specifically one time where it was the 3rd time the DVD crapped out. And I got up and I just said, fuck it. And I left.
So when was that timing wise? Because we had, so after the washed out episode,
they re-aired that same episode the final week, or the following week for free.
Re-aired the episode for free. Mm-hmm. But I believe it was the week after that was when you had the 3 failed DVDs.
Yes. Yep.
So
you're right.
So if you can picture this, we're rolling with TV. We air an episode that no one can see. The next episode, we air the same thing again, finally visible. And then Josh's DVDs wouldn't work, so we weren't able to meet our deadline. And so to fill that airspace, they aired the same episode a 3rd time.
Yes. And that was it.
You want to talk about losing momentum?
That was it. I mean, honestly, that was it. We aired another episode or 2, I think, after that. Mm-hmm. But we saw the writing on the wall, and it was a combination. So at this point, we have a TV taping coming up
that we're advertising as a TV taping. Come to this, and you're going to get to be on TV. And
we're advertising a TV taping, and I'm burnt out because how much. Not only the backlash we were getting in the very early internet days, but the backlash we were getting from airing the same thing 3 weeks in a row. There was a very small following on a message board that would just tear us apart, you know, for doing that. And, you know, it was out of our control.
We were disappointed. We actually had that little fan base, and we really disappointed them.
Yeah. And, you know, the first time that was Channel 48 screwed up. And so the next week, fans were like, I'm sure we lost some, but fans forgave and said, not their fault, whatever it is. But I will say something else that you have to remember. There was no such thing as Twitter. There was no such thing as Facebook. We couldn't tweet out a thing. Nowadays, in real time, we would be tweeting out a thing saying, due to technical difficulties, we will be re-airing this episode next week. Or more accurately, please enjoy the episode free at our YouTube channel right now.
Right.
You know?
We were really handicapped. There was nothing.
There was no way to reach out to anybody and say, we're sorry, don't worry, we'll air it again next week. No one knew we were going to air it again next week until it aired. And I think those people were like, okay, that's fine. We didn't get it last week, so we'll watch it again now. But when those people were like, all right, we're giving them another chance. And the next week, we aired the same damn episode. And we aired the episode legitimately because we had no other choice, because I was literally burning through DVDs trying to get the damn thing to them, and it wasn't working. And I had a frustration in the fact that I knew better equipment existed, but I knew I couldn't afford it.
Right.
And, my hands were tied.
And at that point, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think so. So you started talking to Morad, and you said, this TV experiment is not working out. I can't. This is a disaster. We need to pull back from this. I don't think initially you said we wanted to stop. You said we need to pull back from this, and he said, no, we got to continue with the TV. And at that point, the conversation became, he said, well, I don't want to do this anymore. And he said, can I take over the TWF? And you said, I'm really not comfortable with that. That's my brand. And I think there was never like a firm decision at that point. It was just kind of, you said, for now, I can't keep going with this. We have to stop.
Right. And so the thought was, we'll do this TV taping, but the TV taping was supposed to culminate in a quote unquote pay-per-view show. It was supposed to be two episodes of TV.
Was it always going to culminate in a
It was going to culminate in
show?
Inferno.
Okay.
It was going to culminate in Inferno, and we changed the name of it because I said, this is it. We got to end the TWF. I can't do. It was pretty much this. I can't do if we remove Morad, right? Morad wants to do TV. I can't keep doing TV. It's not going to work. It's killing me. I can't do this. If we remove him and go back to running the TWF, then we're right back where we were in the summer of 2002, where I don't
College
have
kids
the money.
with no money.
We don't have the money to do this. We don't have the means to do this because Morad was now bringing other people along to help out with the production, to help set up the entrance way, to help, things were changing a little bit. So now we're going to be right back to where we were before. Which wasn't going to work. So I'm looking at this going, okay, I need to get out of this in some way, out of running these things, out of whatever. But I lost my train of thought a little bit there. But so I had basically said we need to get out of this. We need to end the TWF because I can't continue it without Morad, and I'm not letting Morad continue it without me. So we came up with an idea that we changed it from Inferno. We were going to do these TV tapings. The idea was we would continue to do TV. We would continue these TV tapings, and it would all culminate in a show called Omega. Alpha being the beginning, Omega being the end. And that was kind of, I think, TWF Omega. And in that, we kind of rewrote all the stories because I had no intention of getting back in the ring. And it was rewritten to the fact that I would come back to challenge Scott for the world title.
So you're talking about it was at least a year's worth of storylines that, again, were actually written in Josh's notebook that we compressed into one series of TV tapings to shotgun this entire thing that was supposed to be this incredibly detailed story with twists and turns that eventually culminated in Josh's return and how it was going to build up to this match and everything. And we just vomited it all up there in one fell swoop.
And we had a lot of plans for how we were going to end this. We said, you know what, if we're going out, we're going to go out in TWF style. So I'm going to have this match with Scott, which is almost, in a way, it was almost like my ability to say, after all these years, I end it in a main event TWF title match against a quote unquote real wrestler. Like that was kind of like, all right, that's a good feeling.
Well, and at the same time, sorry, go ahead.
No. So I was going to say Mangle was going to have his big blow-off match with Big Papa.
Right, right.
And I believe we were going to do, if I remember correctly, we were going to do one final match between, and I might be making this up, but I think we were going to do one final match between Brody and Mike.
That's very possible.
And if not, Brody was going to be heavily featured.
Brody and Lou or something like that.
It's going to be something along the line.
Yeah.
We already done Brody and Lou.
And Brody was always
do something.
featured well. But what that I mean, we'll talk about John Brody, but I think that was also part of where your mindset was, because remember, if we back up quite a bit, at that point, Josh had already trained to be a professional wrestler at the Wild Samoan Training Center, and had been disappointed that John Brody had not accompanied him there to become an indie wrestler with him. They had the one PWF match. and John was not ready for that kind of thing. And Josh was always frustrated. I put words in your mouth that there was nobody there. Fast forward to where we were at the time of these TV tapings. And as we said last time, Big Lou had started to hit his stride, was loving being a wrestler, was getting better and better every time. And he and Josh talked and said you guys said we can do this together. We can go out in the indies, work each other, work together as a team, whatever. So part of your motivation, I think, was you said it would just be such a relief to let go of the reins of this thing and just work. And now I got my buddy to come with me.
Yeah, to just show up at a wrestling show and just wrestle a 6 to 10 minute match. And that's it.
Yep.
That's all I have to do. It was really intriguing. And yeah, and going back, talking about like, so that was one of the things we did. So we kind of throughout the night and throughout TV tapings, we kind of formulated this nice plan. And I had this one, I made my return to confront on the first set of TV tapings to confront you, Fred.
Yes.
And then later in the show, I had a thing with Lou where I really, really put him over and talked about the potential he had.
Yep.
And I remember saying the important thing to note is Rob Dimension was there. It was his crew that provided the ring and provided the entranceway and everything. And I kind of shocked because Morad booked them and Rob Dimension was like part of those guys. And Morad was so suspicious that the ring wasn't going to show up because Dimension was working with them and all this stuff. It was very nerve-wracking for him. But I remember cutting this promo with Lou and saying that this was the story. Was I said to you was if Scott wins, then I will never wrestle again, because there was something like in the clause where I was left with like I was left to make one more match or some crap. I don't know. We made it up to make it work. Still better than WWE today. And so I said, if Scott beats me, then I'm gone. I'm gone from the TWF forever in every capacity, in every way. I'm gone. But if I beat Scott, not only do I become the TWF champion and take back the belt that I had never lost, but I shut down the TWF. And I remember the crowd was like really behind me until I said that. They were a little confused. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like left that and let it hang. And it wasn't until the promo with Lou where I explained it, where I said, I'm shutting this down for Lou, for people like Lou, for the people who have so much talent. And I remember saying, but these assholes in the business continue to refer to this as backyard wrestling, continue to think of you as a backyard wrestler when you're so much more, when you have so much more to give this business. I am shutting this down so that you can leave, so that you can finally go out and be who I know you can be. And that was the story that we kind of did. It was kind of a work shoot, and that was kind of it was very much a work shoot. It was very confusing in that way. There was a lot of art and life crossing over. Yeah. And so that was a little shot at Rob Dimension there. But we ended up doing the show, unfortunately. Noah Sokoloff, who I believe watches our show here. So, hey, Big Papa. And before I'll say hi before I bury you. Now, Noah, I don't remember exactly what it was, but Noah was not able to attend. Was that the sunburn or was that Sunburn? I think was West Virginia. Maybe an ankle injury. He hurt his ankle or knee playing basketball. That's what it was. And I don't know the full story behind it, and I'll take his word for it. But I remember we were incredibly disappointed because we looked at it and said, well, just show up. Just show up, and there's so many things we can do. We wanted one last chance to like celebrate what we had tried to accomplish. And even if he had shown up like on crutches or something, right. And he gets into the ring with a whole, sob story or whatever, and Mangle's face to face with him, and then someone attacks Mangle from behind or something, right? Like there were creative things we could do if he was there, but he wasn't there, and so we lost that. And so instead, Mangle had a great match with Scott.
Yeah, it was good. It was great. Smooth.
And then a match, we'll say, with Steve Hayden. Now, just to say, you worked earlier in the night. You worked 2 matches, if I remember correctly. You worked against Devin Moore.
Yes.
Who you had a pretty.
Devin Moore was he looked like he should. Well, he gave the impression that he should have been in Breaking Bad, way ahead of the time.
Yes,
but a good guy and a solid wrestler.
Yeah,
you guys had a good match,
and he, took care of you in there. We had a great match.
There's one great
second row power slam.
There was a great spot where he did a shooting star press from the apron onto you on the floor on the outside.
That's okay.
But it was a good back and forth match.
A lot of that was kind of improv too. Like, we kind of had blocks of stuff, but we obviously kind of go off and we came back, and that was a solid match. That was great. Wrestling Scott was great. Would have loved to have, wrestled Noah at least one time. But with Hayden, we get in the ring there. We're starting off how we talked about, and then hits the old snap mare on me and gets a little stiff ski. And the crowd goes, "Oh!" And I'm like, "All right, okay, all right." He laid in a couple more, fine. All right, again, he might have been wrestling another year or two before me, but I see him as a veteran, so okay.
Yeah, doubtful that he was, because you were wrestling in the original TWF. So I promise you.
Exactly. Well, in hindsight, I should have just folded him up like an accordion and turned him into a bag of bones, but. He got me to the corner, and then we were going through one of the things he was supposed to do, and I grabbed his arm. And he went through the right hand, grabbed the arm, grabbed him by the throat, picked him up, and slammed him as hard as I possibly could right in the back of his shoulders. I think I hit him with a power bomb, and I hit him a stiff boot. We got our licks in, but I got
your working boot was a stiff boot. So
the boots back then were actually working boots, which was probably a bad idea because the rubber on the bottom was about that thick, and then it was not steel toed. It was not steel toed. But then what I found later in 2007, we're getting ahead of it, was some boxing boots, which I should have used all along. Anyway,
and hear me out. Yes. Wrestling boots. Yeah, maybe I don't know how I'm
going to be doing. Back in 1999, I didn't know how long I was going to be doing this. So good call. Just like at Barnes and Nobles when they asked me about back in senior year of high school if I was at the cafe and they asked me, "Do you want the Barnes and Noble rewards card?" I don't need that. 15 years later, when I'm buying a book, they ask me the same question.
But anyway, so Mangle, so you had that match and. That was it. That was your swan song. Calvin, were you there with Mangle for that match?
I believe I was, because I think I remember. I think I remember being there for the show.
I think it was one. It was like one. It was like the one last hurrah, because we had dropped Heatwave being with Mangle for Calvin to really run things in the back, but we had him come out for one last.
We were trying to do these things just for ourselves at that point, but we lost Noah, we lost Brody, we lost, I believe, Rod was not available.
That's true. I forgot about Rod.
A lot of the TWF originals who'd been there with us through it all, who we really wanted to be there, pulled a TWF and no showed the last.
Brody was in a he was in a bad place, and I remember that was a tough thing because I couldn't get in touch with him, and the last I heard from him, he was going to be there, and then I couldn't get in touch with him, and I didn't hear from him for maybe a month or so after, and his personal, I'm not going to go on here and talk about all his personal issues. What I will say is that John today is living life to the fullest. He is happy as can be, has a great life, great family, and is, as he always was, a great guy. That show was tough because I knew that John was in a bad way, and I was worried about him more than anything. Noah, I was annoyed. Rod, I was annoyed. But John, I couldn't get in touch with him, and I was very worried about him. And it was just a weird time. And again, I'm so glad to every time. I haven't seen him in quite a while. But it was funny. We did a show all of us did a show called Business as Usual. It was a web TV series. One of the first web TV series out there, believe it or not. We did 5 seasons of it. Calvin finally joined us for the 5th season. And that's when I was, to pat myself in the back, nominated for an IAW TV award for Best Male Performance in a Comedy. No big deal. No big deal because I lost, but still, I was nominated alongside Don Rickles, and he also lost. So I guess pretty much comedically, I am an equal to Don Rickles. Now then, the reason I bring that up is because in season 4, which was many years after the TWF, Mike Green, who was Sassy Mike Malassi, also, he was a main character in Business as Usual. And he and I took a trip to Florida in an episode, and it was the first time in a very long time I'd seen John once since the TWF ended. And he was supposed to be in a later TWF, and that's a story for another time. But that didn't work out, and I finally saw him, and he had cleaned up his act and his life, and it was great. And he had a guest spot on that show where he said things like, well, the heat wave's up in Tampa, but it's lukewarm down here, which was, we kind of threw that line in there. So it was great to be able to have him do that. But anyway, I'm rambling here, which is pretty much what I've done for an hour and 24 minutes. But the show came to a close. It was bittersweet. I won my 4th and final TWF championship from the Solution Scott Fowler, and shut down the TWF with a great shot of Fred practically crying outside the ring. But my match with Scott, that wasn't the final match in the TWF. The final match in the TWF for the TWF championship was a rematch from the final match, or from the first match for the TWF championship.
So remember that to that point, we had never really acknowledged, there hadn't been all that much time of Lee Harrison Styles in front of the camera as a character. We acknowledged that he's Rocky Styles' brother.
We acknowledged Punch Rest, first Pennsylvania champion.
Yeah.
In your entrance video.
We didn't deny it. It was indirectly referenced. We didn't say, it never said like he used to be Punch Fresh or whatever. And one of the many, many plans that we had that was supposed to be over a long period of time, once Rocky Styles finally came back, it would be a long thing that he was going to chip away at basically Lee Harrison Styles' sanity,
yes,
which I thought was going to be so much fun to act out over this long period of time, that he was going to just pester him to the point where he just loses his mind and begins to believe that he really is Punch Fresh. And this whole thing, I had all these ideas, and I really wanted to like pour myself into this role and everything. And like everything else, we had to shotgun it into one moment where I just was so frustrated that Rocky Styles won the match that I snapped and claimed that I was once again Punch Fresh. To which
you're not going to face me as you're unbuttoning your shirt and having trouble with the buttons, and then you pull out of your pocket a leather glove, and you go, "You remember this? You remember this?" And I believe it was a left-handed glove where you always wore a right-handed glove.
I don't even know.
And you're like trying to get it on your hand, and it's like not the right one. And then you turn around, ring the bell, and you turned around before they rang the bell, and then turned back to yell the ring bell again. So it kind of blew the spot.
Our timing was not great.
So it was a little bit. You turn around, I super kicked you, and I pinned you 1, 2, 3, and that was it. And it was fun. And that was the end of the TWF. But part of the deal that we had made with Morad was that as wrestlers and characters, we would return for Morad's continued promotion, him and Gabriel, called the
SWA.
SWA. Thank you. That's what I thought it was, but I didn't want to be the one.
Supreme Wrestling Alliance.
So imagine, if you will, the perception of the audience who came to a TV taping, find out that in the storyline, it appears that Rocky Styles is threatening to shut down the entire company, and all of us wrestling fans know that that's just a work that's obviously setting up the stakes and it's never going to happen. Then to their surprise,
what's the
it
screw
actually
job that's going to make them lose? Right.
It actually happens. And now they don't understand that it's being shut down. And there's this final confrontation between the Styles brothers. And then out of nowhere comes Gabriel, who the audience doesn't know who he is, to which he announces.
He's never been on camera.
Because I think
Never
at this
been in
point,
front of
am I getting this? The TWF roster had come out to celebrate, right?
TWF roster comes out to celebrate. They put me up on their shoulders, which was not planned. I didn't know they were going to do that. And I really appreciated that because that was them showing respect for how much they've loved what we had done for them. Yeah. We're celebrating, and there's a TWF chant from the crowd and everybody, and that which I believe is the chant. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that is the chant you hear at the end of every one of these episodes at the end of the credits. The TWF chant from that. And that is when all of a sudden Morad comes out wearing his best sunglasses and hat. And he comes out to basically talk about how the TWF might be dead, but the SWA is starting and all that stuff. And he's like yelling at all of them about how he's the money behind it. He's the investor and all. And this was all planned. Morad wanted to do this. And Morad wanted, his vision of it was that I was going to nail him over the head with a chair. And I said, no, I am not hitting you over the head with a chair. I'll hit you in the back with a chair. Because I was not going to be responsible for, walloping him in the head with a chair. So
you'd have diabetes all over the canvas.
Oh, Jesus. And I thought we weren't going to have a diabetes conversation because you weren't here when I referenced Phil May speaking like Wilford Brimley. But
oh man,
he did
all
very
right.
similar.
Yeah, we're gonna have to pick that apart next time when we talk about this show and I watched it. Yeah.
Oh man. So anyway, he comes out. I hit Morad in the back with the chair.
Diabetes.
Oh God. I hit Morad with the chair, and he goes down. And it's supposed to be like, that's it. And that's the final. We do this celebration and everything. Because Morad just really wanted to be this character on air. He really wanted to do that. So we're like,
everybody
okay,
wants their chance to get in there. It's.
But everybody's got to get their shit in. And they took advantage. And as the New York guys always did, and they started hitting all their finishes on him. And not stiff. They were all working finishes. But one after another, a splash, a this, and then one of them landed on his glasses and broke his glasses. And then Bill Bain, friend of the show, Bill Bain's watching. The Solution Scott Fowler smartened him up to this, and he sent us a message. Bill Bain, I believe, yells, "This is the TW. This isn't the SWA. This is the TWF. Now get out of our ring." And which was it was a cool moment, and it really was like. I remember in that moment, like feeling like that's really neat that all of these like indie guys, by the end of it, almost became like homegrown guys. Like they had become a part of this family.
Yep.
And that's when all of a sudden Gabriel comes out. And Fred, would you like to pick it up from here?
I don't even know what to say. He comes out. No one knows who he is. The audience is completely befuddled at this point, and he just says something like "This is the SWA" or something like that.
Yeah,
like,
and it was a bunch of
guys.
Who I want to believe it was like the Authors of Pain or something from. That's pretty much what they look like, these giant guys.
A bunch of these guys came running in and started brawling like a work brawl with our guys that we had no idea. At this point, I'm just pacing around outside because and getting out of there. I don't want any part of this. And like, it was. And the guys started having this fight, to which I remember. I want to say Danny DeManto. I think he wrote about the event in his blog shortly after, which he said, "I took personal pride in that." I don't remember the name of the guy. He's like, but I kicked that one guy right in the nuts.
And I remember it was also, I don't know who it was, but somebody took like a power bomb and jumped up from it and was like, yeah, and then ran. So it was one of our.
It was an absolute disaster. It was
terrible. And that was it.
So we're running real long here, but so what came out of that, and we'll deal with the like what came out for us later on, like in you and Lou and everything like that. But what came out of that right after was a bizarre series of lawsuits that weren't actually lawsuits, a lot of calls that Josh would get from people claiming to be Vince McMahon's attorney and who wanted to see
Sounded
why.
a lot like Gabriel.
It was something about.
It wasn't a
from what we
lawsuit against
understand,
us. It wasn't a lawsuit against us.
And
He wanted-
nothing to do with us. From what we understand, following that event, there was supposed to be an SWA show. It never happened. And we're not sure why, because we weren't really talking to anybody. And Morad and Gabriel had some kind of a falling out. And there was threats of legal action. And they were trying to get Josh to take somebody's side. And so Vince McMahon's attorney called asking for a deposition. And
I was like, I'm unavailable. Like, it was ridiculous.
So if you think the shit show ended that night, it continued on.
No, and we'll talk more about that. But to put a bow on this, that was the end of the TWF. In a lot of ways, that was the end of the real TWF, and the TWF would return an event called TWF Returns, and we will talk about that. I guess we'll get into that next month. We'll talk about everything that happened between 2003 and 2007 that led to the return of the TWF. But final thoughts here. We'll start with you, Mangle. Well, Fred, did you have something to say? Or
no? Okay.
Okay. Final thoughts, Mangle. What was your feeling when you walked away? You knew that there was a possibility of a future with the SWA because they talked about having like a TWF invasion angle where like we would all come into the SWA, whatever. But what was your thought here, leaving this and your vision moving forward? Did you think to yourself, maybe I'll try the indies? Do you think to yourself, this has been a fun run, but I think I'm going to go, have a normal life? Like what was your thought process?
Well, the 2003 was kind of the peak for me as far as continuity of matches and just kind of feeling natural and just second nature in the ring, especially with the roster. Everybody was gelling at that time. Unfortunately, that was also the time that things were ending. I would have liked to have seen what would have happened. I guess we'll always be curious about like if TV had worked out as far as different shows.
Yep.
If we were able to at least play out what was written down, where would things be? But as a lot of people know with wrestling business and any business, things can happen out of nowhere, and you just have to adjust. So it was what it was. Technology was not there, like it is now. Just a different time. It was a fun time. Things could happen and you kind of reflect back to those times a lot. But I, at that point, was just kind of like, let's see what happens with the SWA. I don't know if you and I or whatever, we were going to do stuff on the indies or what, or, just kind of a big question mark, honestly. I was finishing school that following semester. College. So, everything was kind of a question mark. So just kind of living in the moment at that time.
Calvin, you had returned for that and you'd been there for all the shows to help him backstage and everything. What was your feeling? Did you feel like, hey, I think, you weren't there at this point anymore on the day-to-day. As we said, you were with Universal, with the internship. You were obviously focused on building a life and a career for yourself. Far away from the TWF, that wasn't really, Well,
yeah, as Matt said, I obviously graduated at the same time as Matt. So we graduated college in 2003. So I came back from New York after my internship to graduate and then got a job locally. So, while the whole TWF was happening, that was our college years, Yeah. So we kind of had that freedom. We kind of had to free a lot of time, and not have the responsibility.
Yeah.
But now it kind of ended at the same time we were starting our, full-time career jobs, So I guess it kind of worked out. I don't know what, how much involvement we would have had, right, had the TWF continued while we started our full-time careers,
Yeah.
Right.
We wouldn't have had as much time to devote to it as we did in college. So it kind of just transitioned that way. I always wondered why we called that last show Omega instead of Oblivion. Because that would have kind of fit the last show, TWF Oblivion.
Yep.
Well,
hey,
which is an inside joke, because I think when we were trying to come up with pay-per-view names in the early days of TWF, Oblivion was thrown out there, and we were like, why would we call the show Oblivion?
That was business contribution. Yes.
Yeah, and we all were like, that doesn't make sense. We want this, why would we call the show Oblivion? Because it's supposed to continue. And then here we are, knowing that was the last show.
Yeah.
Oh man, Fred, your what was your thought when it ended? Where did you think your future was going to be, and with wrestling, with anything?
Nowhere. And I was very disappointed at that point, because I certainly wasn't a wrestler. I entertained the possibility, and I think you and I had talked about, oh yeah, if you and Lou got going, then maybe I'd come in as your manager in some respect. But there was nothing concrete, and it was very disappointing. I mean, I was removed from it a lot more in the behind the scenes at that point, but I was loving doing the character and just didn't get to play it out the way I wanted. I think just having it not end on the even doing the last show the way we wanted without Noah and everything, like, it just was not. It felt sloppy and just disappointing. I really think nobody came away from that feeling particularly good about where we're at with anything. It was so sudden on the heels of such like Mangle, I think, said about, like, everyone was gelling. Like there was a real there was a continuity, and there was a what's what I'm looking for, there was a team camaraderie. There was a sense of a team forming, and it all just kind of fell apart. And there was at the time there was no hope of, there's this SWA thing. There's always the talk of, like, the last man standing tournament or something. But other than that, at that time, there was no real hope of, like, a year before when we took the indefinite hiatus, it was always assumed we would come back in some capacity. At that point in 2003, it seemed like that was it. Like to Calvin's point, that was the college years, and this is kind of, it's done. And it was really sad in that way that because I think, and obviously we'll get into what came next, but I think in one respect, it was the last time that we had a real, aside from the New York crowd that kind of did a lot of what they wanted, where we really had a lot of control. And I think it also was the last time that we felt that we could be something, because we came into version 2.0 of TWF at the time when WCW was gone, ECW especially had folded. And like I said earlier, we saw that opening in the Philadelphia market to really get a foothold there. And all these other companies are popping up, and we're competing with all of them. And we thought we could really find our niche and be something special. And I don't think after that, we ever felt that again. We kind of went, and anything we did after was sort of, maybe we could build something sustaining, like some of these other, like WWWA, and some of these that are always perennially, they're always around forever and ever and ever. But I think in 2002, 2003, we had bigger dreams, and there's something inspiring about that. And then when it was kind of like deflated, And so I think it wasn't a good feeling at all.
Well, we hope that all of you had a good feeling listening to us talk about this, though. It really was, to me, the true end of the TWF in a lot of ways. But we came back, and we will talk about that next time. But until then, you can find all of us on social media at the TWF Show. And individually, of course, Fred is at Frederick Chernoff. Calvin is at Calvin Tan Magic, at Underground Magi, wherever you want to look for him. And then there is at Mangle Strength from at Mangle. Do everybody a favor. Let's subscribe to youtube.com/So Says Chernoff. And let's also, while we're on YouTube, type in Personal Training Unlocked and see if we don't want to subscribe to Matt Mangle's channel there and learn a little something. Mangle's going to have some new videos up there as soon as the slacker that helps him out with doing the video editing gets an opportunity to do some stuff for him. Have those up there soon. You can find me at So Says Chernoff, and you can probably find myself and Calvin Tan if the world doesn't shut down at various shows, like the upcoming shows in Chicago, and for AEW and GCW, as well as the upcoming show in. Where is it?
St. Louis.
St. Louis, yes, for the NWA. We're hoping to be there as well, barring the world shutting down. So let's everybody do what we need to do to stay healthy and stay open. And we will see you all the next time that I decide to get together and chat with these people in a little show we call Talking with Friends. One last thought before we go. I think Rob Dimension stole my notebook that night. The notebook I had with all the things that Fred had mentioned, all of the stories and all of the plans for the TWF went missing that night backstage. And Morad would have you believe that it was Rob Dimension. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But that is something I thought was important to add on here. And now, please enjoy the history of the TWF video.
Please come now, I think I'm falling, holding on to what I think is safe. It seems I found the road to nowhere, and I'm trying to escape. I get back when I heard thunder, but I'm down to one last breath. And with it, let me say, hold me now. I'm 6 feet from the edge, and I'm thinking maybe 6 feet is so far down. I'm looking down, now that it's over, reflecting on all of my mistakes. I thought I found the road to somewhere in His grace. I cried out, heaven save me, but I'm down to one last breath. And with it, let me say, hold me now. I'm 6 feet from the edge, and I'm thinking maybe 6 feet ain't so far down. Hold me now. I'm 6 feet from the edge, and I'm thinking maybe 6 feet ain't so far down. I'm so far down. Said eyes follow me, but I still believe there's something left for me. So please come stay with me, 'cause I still believe there's something left for you and me, for you and me, for you and me. Hold me now. I'm 6 feet from the edge, and I'm thinking. Hold me now. I'm 6 feet from the edge, and I'm thinking days come alive.